Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be creating a graphical user interface with Java in IntelliJ IDEA, which is going to be the editor I'm going to be using today. So in this video, we're just going to cover the basics of how to actually create a graphical user interface, how to create the different components like text fields, labels, etc. And then we'll end it off with a actual project in the sense, probably a simple login page with the information we've learned about graphical user interfaces. So anyway, let's get started. I've opened up my IntelliJ IDEA editor here, and in this editor I'm using IntelliJ. You can use whatever editor you want. So here I'm gonna do create new project, and note you could also create graphical user interfaces with an actual UI, which is most suitable in most probably NetBeans, which is probably the main interface that most people use their creating their GUIs or graphical user interfaces for. But you can also create it in, I guess, like hard code, which you can do in IntelliJ. IntelliJ also has a graphical user interface designer, but it's not as usable. So I'm just going to be doing it in actual code. But if you were making a, let's say, bigger project, you could also use the UI to design. So anyway, I'm going to go to next and keep SDK 14 and create the project from template, and I'll call it login GUI. Let's see here. Finish. Alright, so a new project has been created. Alright, so first of all, to actually start making our graphical user interfaces, there is a library that Java uses to create these. It's called Swing. And in the Swing library, you'll find tons of different components that you can use to actually build these user interfaces. So in this case, the library, I'm just going to initialize the first and main components, and then you'll see it import. So in this case, the first component is going to be the frame of our application. So any like application on your computer, you're going to notice has a simple frame with a maybe a menu bar icon and then these three buttons, and then here this is known as the frame of an application, or a Windows application. And so to actually create this in Java using Swing, we're going to initialize something called a JFrame. So let me just here, and I'll import, and it should have auto imported the entire Swing library here. So frame, and I'll just call it frame is equal to new JFrame. And then after this, there is a little hack that you can do to actually set the title. Many people, to set the title of this frame, we'll do frame.set set title to see the title. So in this case, you'll notice any Windows title would be like, in this case we have this, or anything else in that case. To set the title, instead of doing it like manually through the function, you can also, JFrame has a constructor with a parameter that means title, so you can set the title right here instead of typing that in. That's a good shortcut if you want to save time when setting the title of your frame. So here I'm just going to set it to login page. Alright, so next, now that we've had our frames, we're going to need to set a few baseline standard things to actually put our frame onto the screen. So first of all, it's going to be frame.set, and this is probably the most important. Set default close operation to jframe dot, and then this is how basically how you want your frame to close, or basically what you want to do when you hit this X button on the frame. So do you want to just dispose, meaning minimize it? Do you want to close the application? In this case, I'm just going to do exit on close, so it just exits the window after we hit the button. So next, I'm going to frame.pack. This is a method used to actually, like, as it says in the name, pack all the components, or the basically the frame, all the components of it together, so you can actually essentially see the JFrame, or you can see the window when you run the application. These are a few things that are just standard baseline that you do so you can actually see it. And then here there are a few other methods. You can also do like frame.add. This just adds components. You can set a size, background, and then here you can also set an icon image, which will just set the what the icon will be, but in this case we're just going to keep it standard. But we can here set a preferred size to new, and then we'll call a dimension object, and in the dimension we'll pass the dimensions. So let's just keep a standard 600 by 600 pixel frame. So now let's see. Let's actually run our program and see if we can actually see our JFrame run. It's building. All right. Let's see. Did it display? No, it didn't. Let me see if something went wrong here. Let me try a method dot set visible. This is also a method dot set visible to true. Let's see if that works. Let's rerun the code. Alright, so it has appeared on my um, screen on the side. Let me just drag it over here. Alright, so let me just drag it over here. Okay, so you'll notice that the icon is also displayed, but when this ran, it came out at a pretty small size. So let me see why that is. Let me try set size instead of setting preferred size. And then just remove this dimension part. Let's see if that works. Alright, run that one last time. Alright, that works. So now we have a 600 by 600 frame. So this is fine. I'm just gonna decrease the height to 500 and that should be good. So now we have a actual frame in which we can now put stuff in. Now in terms of how graphical user interfaces work in Java is that you cannot just directly add components onto the frame. You need to add components onto the panel in this case. So what you can do is initialize something called a JPanel, and this will be essentially a panel that you can use to add any components like labels, text fields, etc. So we'll call it panel is equal to new JPanel, and then here, so we can actually like customize uh, our panel and play position items wherever you want. This will make more sense when we actually start creating components, but so we can position items wherever we need to, I'm going to do panel dot set layout to null, and then after this, now that we've created our panel, we can just do frame dot add then panels. This is just adding our panel to the frame, and if we run this, you won't see any change, but now we have a actual panel in which we can place components. Alright, so now we're gonna start adding things, actual like usable components like your text fields, labels, etc. So first of all, since we're creating a login page, I'm gonna add a label. I'll just call it login label is equal to new, and we're gonna initialize a J label, and then here again the same hack that we used in the or shortcut we used in the frame, where we can, instead of just directly saying instead of manually saying login label dot set text, we can just pass it in as a parameter when we initialize. Here login label dot the text will be login. I will just say welcome. Welcome. Please log in. Okay, so Now that we've done that, let's add it to our panel, and then panel.add login label. All right, so let's run it and see what happens. Let's run. All right. Let's see. Okay, the label didn't display. Let me see. Okay, oh yeah. Because we set the layout to null, as I said before, we need to position every component we make manually. So set bounds. This is a function that allows us to initialize a height, width, and the location for our object. So this accepts 4 integers. So the first 2 integers will be the location based on an XY grid. So let's say we want to keep it by let's do 100 on X and see 150 on Y. Then we'll have the width be like I'll do like let's see 400, and then the height we'll do like 100. Let's see what that comes out as. Okay, so that has came out. All right, so here we see a welcome, please log in. Now, in this case, what we're gonna want to do, I'm gonna just position this a little bit. So I'm thinking move this about halfway to maybe like 30x, or actually, no, let's get it more towards the center. So if the width is 600, then we want to put it around 300 on X, and then we'll take it back to around 50 on Y and see how that works out. Let's see. You kind of have to do a trial and error experiment process when you directly position these, but it helps in the end to get a more custom application. And note, you could always just do this whenever you are doing a, let's say, whenever you are doing an application and just using the UI to design this, it would be much easier to drag and drop this. But if you are manually coding the UI, then you're gonna have to do some trial and error. So anyway, I think we've pushed this a little too much to the side, so I'm gonna do 200 and set the Y to 30. Let's see, 30, and then let's bring this down to 200. We'll see how that is. Alright, let's bring that back. Let me bring that here. Okay, so not bad. But it's at a, let's take this 20, let's bring the Y to 20 and then push this to around 250. Y to 20 and push that to 250. Alright, so I think we've gotten a decent height. I'm just gonna take this down to 10 and then bring this to 220. Let me see. Alright, so yep, that should be good. So anyway, I'm gonna take this to 5, and then let's run it one last time. And awesome. So we have a welcome, please log in label directly positioned. And then now what we're going to do is actually style our label. And to do that, we're just going to set some font properties. So login label dot set font. And then here for this accepts object font. And then here, let me just alt enter to import. I'll just import the class. Alright, so now this font accepts 3 parameters. If we hover over it, you can see it should do that or not. So anyway, it accepts three parameters, which include the style of font variants, which would be like bold, italic, the size of the font, and the font type, so Times New Roman, sans serif, etc. In this case, I'm gonna go with your classic Times New. I'm not sure how this camel case works here. Times New Roman. Alright, and then I'm just gonna go with a font dot. I'll do italic, and then well, for size, I will do 20. Alright, let's see how that runs. Okay. Alright, that looks pretty good. Pretty nice. So I'm gonna increase this to 30. Oh, and then after that, what I'm gonna do is here in where I have the set bounds, I'm gonna bring this down to 200 because the font size got a bit bigger, so we're gonna want to update that. So anyway, now let's run that. Alright, awesome. So we have a welcome please login logo all styled, and let's actually bring this to like 150. Alright, let's see how that styles. Alright, awesome. So we have a welcome please login logo. So I'm actually gonna change the panel background color. Panel dot background set background, and then I'm just gonna do a custom new color, and then here I'm just gonna type in some random number. What this will do is on the side, if you're using IntelliJ, it will open a little the color hex panel, and then here you can just choose whatever color you want. So here I think I'm gonna go with a light purple. Let's see how that runs. And you could also always just go with the built-in colors as well. And then here, like for the login label, dot set foreground in this case, set foreground basically means the text or what the actual text color will be. The background means the background of the object. So in this case, I'm just going to set a simple color dot white, and then that should work. So awesome. So we have a decently styled login page. All right. So now that we've done this, let's add our uh, welcome, please. So now let's add our labels and text fields for the username and password. So in this case, I'm going to go with a standard J label, which will be the username label. Oh, let's get rid of this. Username label is equal to new J label. And I'm just going to say username. And then in terms of the actual styling, it's going to be pretty similar. So I'm just going to copy this and make the changes I require. So here, user name label. And then for the fonts, I'm going to go with a, see if Comic Sans is in their database. And then here, I'm going to go with a font dot bold. And then size, gonna keep at 20. And then in terms of positioning, width and height can remain the same. And then I'm just gonna bring it down in terms of the Y to about, let's see, 105. Alright, let's run that and see where it goes. And then let's see. Okay, so if we run that, yep, we forgot to change here the username label part. That's why I just set the styles to that. So let's change this username label. Alright, so now let's run it one more time. Alright, awesome. So we see we have a welcome please log in with a username here. I'm gonna make this a little smaller to like 18, and then take this to about let's try 75, and then see where that lands us. All right, so I'm gonna do 55 and see where that goes. All right, that looks good. So anyway, let's just add a colon and a space here. And then after this, what I'm going to do is now let's actually add a text field. So let's add j text field, and then username is equal to new j text field, and then this is gonna be the swing component for a text field in your GUI. So in this case, what I'm gonna do is, uh, in terms of styling, it's pretty straightforward. The only thing I'm gonna be changing is the set bounds, and I'm gonna copy again because the positioning is gonna be. I want these. The reason I'm copying the data is because I want the components to be aligned with each other, so I don't have to manually go and align them back to where they were in a straight line, because that looks nice in terms of where when you're creating a user interface. So anyway, here username dot set, and then we have same positioning, except now we will change our y to, let's bring it to 80. And then for in terms of width and height, I'm going to change this width part to about, let's do 50, actually 60. And then the height we'll do at 30. So let's see what that. And then let's just add it to our panel. Username dot, or not username, panel dot add username. Alright, so now let's run that. Alright, let's see. So okay, so bit of a UI difference. So in this case, that what we need to do is bring it way more down and increase the width. So let's bring this down to, let's say 100. And actually I'm gonna do like 120 just to make sure. And then in terms of the width, I'm just gonna make it like 1110. All right, let's add that. All right, awesome. So that is a pretty standard design. All right, so let's bring it a little more down. So I'm just going to change it to 130, and then actually 140. And then after that, what I'm going to do is increase the width to about 150. So let's see. Max. Okay, so in terms of width, I think we got a pretty decent one. I'm just going to take it to 160. But in terms of this, I think we're going to reduce it to about 130. So let me see how that comes out. Okay. All right, pretty nice. So just 5 less. So it looks like we can just do 5 less, and then we'll be at a decent change. And between, all right, so awesome. We have a username and then a text field for it. So anyway, also I'm gonna decrease the width of this frame to around 500, and then the height to around 400, only because I feel like there's a lot of excessive space being used here. Let me see. So all right, so actually I think we're gonna, I saw it on the other screen, I think we're just gonna keep it as is. Alright, so anyway, let's go back to, and actually I'm just gonna change the height Alright, so anyway, let's get back to here. And now that we've added the labels, let's for the username, let's add it for the password. So password is pretty similar. I'm just gonna copy the same graphic design code here. Password label is equal to new password, and then here I'm just gonna copy this and then just handy shortcut Control Alt Shift, and then you just click wherever you want and it will open a cursor for you. This word it is in IntelliJ. I'm pretty sure in VS Code to create multiple cursors, I think it's Control D. So anyway, you can just do that, and then here we will set our text field will have some changes, so I'll get to that in a minute. But in terms of our label, I'm just gonna keep the same standard, but just change this to like 155. That should be good in terms of the label. And then here, I'm gonna take this down to like, how much did we have difference there? So it was around 100. So I'm just gonna do like, if that's one, so I'm just gonna do 225. And then in terms of the here, what we're gonna change is first of all, obviously the this is gonna be named password, uh, password. But other than that, let me just change this part here. Other than that, what we also are gonna want to do is here in to get those symbols or like little dots that you see whenever you type in a password. That's what you see in most login pages, those little dots. To get that in a Java in a GUI with Java, there is a special class called password field, and then you just say new j password field, and then here you're gonna notice when you type you'll have the same password dots. So anyway, let's run this and see what we get. All right, let's take this here. All right, awesome. So we have a username and password design here, and then what I'm gonna do now is here, so if we type in anything for the username, in the password section, you'll notice when I type, it comes out as those default dots. Now, one also neat trick or feature that is in the password field is that you can do is password dot set echo char. This basically means what character do you want to be the like representation for your password. So let's say you wanted this to be a asterisk instead, you could do that and it would represent that. And this can work for practically any character. You could even do like, let's say I wanted to do this to like F or say or L or something like that, and it would be that. So this case I'm going to keep it to asterisks because I personally think they look better. But anyway, you could just leave it as default if you wanted as well. So anyway, moving on, I'm gonna go to our last and final component, which is gonna be our actual login button. So a J button called login is going to be equal to new J button, and then for this component also, I don't know why like they did did this in practically a lot of the components, but this one also has the feature in which you can in which there's a constructor with a parameter that can actually pass as the text for the button. You don't, again, you for the same as the label, you don't have to do login.setText. So I'm just gonna pass it directly as a parameter and we'll say login. Then after that, before we actually add styling to the button, I'm just gonna simply add it to the panel.add login, and then I'm gonna do add its positioning. So it's gonna be the same like that login dot that, and then in this case we're gonna have it around, let's see. We'll do 325, and then width we'll keep at the same, but actually height is also fine. We'll do width. We'll reduce it to 130. Let's see how that works. Let's run it. All right. Awesome. So we see we have a button, and I think I should have actually, I think we need to move the login button a bit more up. So in this case, the Y will be, let's